leeway. Now you saw that one was thicker than the other. Different resins have different properties. That there's always an A and a B. One is the resin, one is the hardener that sets it off. Once you've poured your resin, you need to mix for about 3 minutes. If it's not mixed properly, you can move in closer. If it's not mixed properly, you will end up with sticky patches in your artwork. So this is a very important, boring part of the process. When you mix, you need to mix, scrape the edges, scrape the bottom, scrape the stick, and then scrape that back in. So that ensures that you are mixing properly. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you can, but there's lots of bubbles forming in that. They will be dispersed once we apply some heat to the board. Come on over and watch. These are two of my students. Oh my God.
I'm like, there's a demonstration, and I'm like, and she goes, guess who's doing it? And I'm like, oh my God, it's you.
Did you know?
No, not in the least.
Okay, so I think that's 3 minutes. So I've chosen these particular colours today, no rhyme or reason. The only, I guess, reasoning behind it is they don't turn brown. So, you know, that's probably the hardest bit in choosing colours, is knowing what the mix of a colour is going to end up, because they will mix. So I'm just going to pour a bit of resin into each cup. I keep in mind roughly, if I want one colour to stand out, I actually want this to stand out today. So it's a neon violet, so I'm actually going to use a fair bit of that. I used a neon green in that one and loved it. I'm actually going to make even more brighter this time and hope it works. All good up there, Michael?
Yep.
Anyone watching?
13.
Now, I'm going to use some silver. Silver is a metallic, so there's metallic silver, gold, copper, rose gold. They float to the top and it will take over your piece. So that's why I've only got a little baby cup, because I only want a little bit of silver. Got a fair bit of resin left, so I'm actually going to fill my cups a little bit more. Now, I'm not too worried that I'm making a mess all over my board, because it all gets covered up. Now the pastes, so pigments for your resin, generally a specific resin pigments. Some are powder, some are paste, some are shimmery, and some are matte. So this one here, so U RESIN that make the resin also make pastes, and they make some shimmer and obviously some matte. So that was a shimmer. This one's a matte colour in the same turquoise. Michael, can you see who's on?
Yes.
Can
You've
you
got
see?
Hello from Alaska, and oh no, I can only see your friends that are on. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you see Shauna or Alex?
Alex. Nah, within resin.
U RESIN? No, within resin.
Yeah.
Hi, Shelley.
Julia Moraz? I don't know.
Yep.
No.
Yeah. Are there any questions so far?
What is the average cost of your pigments?
These little baby ones are from Colour Obsession. They're $7. Then the U RESIN ones are $12.50, and Just Resin also have some. They're $12.50. Gold.
More eyes. Oh, sorry. No, sorry, I'm replying.
Oh,
Continue. Yeah.
sorry.
The lady said more pronounced, like more eyes, because I'm
Oh,
struggling to
okay.
pronounce her name. Yeah.
Now you probably saw I scraped more pigment out of the container. I use a clean stick when I do that, because if I put a stick dipped in resin in there, it will make that cure and you won't use it ever again. So, I forgot to put my apron on. Oh well. So this is the boring part where we just have to mix everything. The pigments do need to mix properly into the resin, otherwise you're going to have chunky bits. You're going to have bits of resin that aren't cured because it's not mixed properly. So although this is quite boring, the fun will begin soon.
Erica's watching.
Ah, hi Erica. Erica is from Artist Till Death. Her and Jeff are a YouTube couple from America that got me on all of this.
She said she wants to take one of your classes.
She runs classes as well in America. She's come to Australia to do workshops in Adelaide as well.
Someone's asked me what resin you're using.
I'm using U RESIN. It's a Perth-based resin. It's actually just been released. It's called Liquid Glass. The difference between that one and their original standard, sorry I'm answering some questions, is this one has more selling properties than the original one. So I don't know if I said some pigments are powders and some are pastes. The powders, there's not a huge amount of difference in the sense of how they work. The gold and silver, rose gold are nearly always powders, and the beauty of those is they actually come to the surface, so they just float up to the surface. Okay, time for the fun to begin. I'm not worried about any of this on here because it will be covered. Okay, so it doesn't really matter how you put it on, where you put it on, because at the end of the day we do heat it with the heat gun and we do push it around. Having said that, I do like to pour it in sort of fairly big chunks and then spread it around. So
What is the board paint on?
house paint. Yeah, so just your standard house paint. Some people recommend a gesso, but I the tip from America, in America, is just standard house paint, works just as well for half the price. And I do find that.
Hey, Quiddy.
Who?
Quiddy. Big
Cousin?
little Quiddy, yeah. Somebody's asked, Mum, do you ever use clear resin first?
Yeah, sometimes I do. The reason I'm not today is I want this neon to stick to that white board and really pop.
Oh, do you want to do that today? Oh, okay. I thought maybe that's oh, did we say that today? Oh,
Okay. Now what I want to do now is just touch all those little vacant spots. That makes it easier for the resin to then flow and meld within each other. So I just do it. Some people do it with a stick. I literally just do it with my hand. And I'm not, again, too fussed if one colour mixes with the other. Now I can see my table is not straight, it's leaning this way. Resin is self-leveling, so it is going to do that. So I just pick it up and move it around. Okay. I use a heat gun to get rid of all the bubbles and to start moving my resin around. So you can see that it looks quite bubbly now. As soon as I put the heat on, now it's quite cool today, so it will take that little bit longer to heat up, but you can see all the bubbles. I don't know if you can see them from that angle. See, it's all clearing up. Now, can you see that the resin is starting to move with that heat?
Yeah.
That's when I know that I need to turn my heat gun down on low. And then I can start pushing my resin from one colour over the other. So this here is what's called selling, and that happens when one colour flows over the other. The other thing you can also do is swipe, and when you swipe, Erica's still watching?
I think so, yeah.
This is learnt from Erica. So you lay down about a pencil width. the colour that you put your paper down on is the colour of the cells that hopefully you will get when it goes over the other colour. So I lay it down, try not to shake too much, and then just slowly drag it over the other colours. A little twist. It won't happen straight away, but once I add a little bit of heat, and just give that a few minutes now. You see that I've got a little chunk here that I can just pick out. Oh!
You alright?
I'm going to try and get that dark turquoise over the top here. So I'm laying down about a pencil width. Add some heat.
Mum, somebody's asked what you're swiping with.
Alright, I'm swiping with Glad Bake. So that's just your grease-proof baking paper. The swipe, it's new.
Yeah. Just asked me, did I do it?
Yeah.
No.
So I'm just gonna, there's not a lot happening here, so I'm gonna see if I can drag some of this lighter colour over the top of that black, of that dark turquoise.
Also, hopefully they can hear you. I think they can.
Right. Can you? Yeah, I'm
Ask
pretty,
them,
yeah.
Someone asked how long working time do you have?
Okay, so with this liquid glass, I've got about 45 minutes of working time.
And then someone said they can never get their swipes to work.
Well, hopefully they've learnt today. So now what I'm doing is I'm breaking the barrier of where the resin isn't dripping over. And I'm not really too fussed what colour I'm adding to that edge, because it will run over. I'll try and spit it out. It will run over and blend. So are there any questions so far? Well, that's good. Or I've confused you all so much.
No, if I can do it, anything you can do it.
Oh,
Yeah, no.
thank you.
So the one you did earlier has the dripping underneath?
Yeah.
How do you get rid of it?
So it will continue to drip for the next 6 hours or so. And then once it's cured hard, I sand them off. Some people do tape up underneath. I still find it requires some sanding and some extra, yeah. So I just let it drip and sand it all off. If you don't, I do it with an orbital sander. If you don't have an orbital sander, you can heat it with a heat gun. That softens it and you can scrape it off.
Were you an arty person before this?
I have always loved doing art, but I can't say that I'm fantastic at it. I can't draw. I do mosaics, but that is pretty much copying a picture. So yeah, it's. I think that this, personally, I don't think you can go wrong The only thing you can go wrong is if you pick colours that will turn brown, because you've seen how much they intermingle. And there's a couple of easy tricks to that. One is pick colours. I've used a lot of turquoise here. The only colour that's different, I didn't use my silver. I will use that in a minute. The only colour that isn't turquoise is that violet. And I'm thinking to myself, violet, turquoise, I don't think they'll make brown. So, I mean, look at those cells coming up there. Alright, I will, before you all run away, I do want to add my silver because I want to show you how it can lift up a piece. This is probably the most artistic part of it, knowing where to put that streak of silver. I generally tend to go with a line that's already there.
So you just said you forgot to add it. Would you have added it before?
No, I always end up adding that towards the end because otherwise it really does take over. So it will float to the top. And after you can have a look at that piece that I've done over there. This first corner is where it's really overtaken because I put too much. So yeah. So I drizzle. So this is a little bit of an art in itself because if you go too slow, it'll wiggle and you'll get a wiggle line. So it does take a little bit of practice. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So the other thing you can do is literally touch the board and drag it through. That is probably easier than drizzling it. Did I tell you how to do that?
Was it Shauna before that you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, she just tuned in.
Hi Shauna. So Shauna is the U RESIN Perth lady. She makes it. So this, yeah. And Shauna doesn't pay me to do anything. I buy her resin because I absolutely love it. The finish of it is just glass-like. They sent me this actually for free to use, just because it's a new product for them. They had a lot of requests of people wanting this cell action, and they've got it. Yeah. So now all I'm doing for the silver is taking those bubbles out. I don't actually want to spread it too much because I really like those delicate lines. And then I'm just going over again, just having a look to see if there are any bubbles that have come up further, because they will continue to come up. But you don't want to heat it too much, otherwise you'll start losing, it'll flow too much over and you'll start losing all the effect that you've put into it. So that's basically it.